All right, welcome back. This is day 12 of recording a video on YouTube every day for the next 30 days. Today, we're going to be talking about Google and how it's now requiring an ID whenever you register your account, specifically in Texas. So if you make an account right now on Google, if you live in Texas, you have to prove how old you are. It's not a checkbox saying I am 18 years old. It's not a birthday. It's an actual verification process. And here's the part that bugs me. To prove that you are an adult, you have to hand over Google your real identity. This started as a law to protect kids, as most of these kind of laws do. Then the Supreme Court just let it go into effect. And it's possibly coming to every state. So let me break down what actually happened and what's happening in the current news, as well as what the privacy kind of trade-off is in the name of protecting kids. So let me just pull up the articles here. This is an ongoing topic in Texas. It's been an ongoing battle for people that believe that these big companies should not have your identification in order to prove who you are. And this is a post back from May 28, 2026. This essentially summarizes that Google is now rolling out age verification for new Texas accounts. There's 4 different brackets of ages. There are children under 13, teenagers, which is 13 to 15, older teenagers, which is 15 to 17, and adults, which is 18 and up. This is a law that was intended to be taking place back in January of 2026. There's been court battles. It's gone up to the Supreme Court. It's come back. And ultimately, this is a huge talking point because it does interfere with privacy. And in some cases, what people are arguing is freedom of speech, essentially the First Amendment. So let's kind of look at the law in plain English. This is the actual court case that went up to the Supreme Court. And this SB 2420 Act is called the App Store Accountability Act. It was signed in Texas in May of 2025, initially meant to be started in January of 2026. Obviously, the intent is to make the internet and apps and resources safe for children. It kind of forces both Google and Apple to do age checks and get parental consent if they fit in these lower brackets. However, the way that you do that is either by face verification, ID, so handing over your physical ID, or doing a bunch of metadata analysis of your data to confirm that you are an adult. So this is pretty wild that that's even happening and that passed in the first place. There's a lot of legal ping-pong happening right now. Essentially, the judge in December of 2025, a month before it was instated to be kind of enacted, blocked it. So it was blocked by the judge. It went up to the Fifth Circuit to be reviewed, essentially revive it. And then it went to SCOTUS, which is the Supreme Court of the United States. And that's when the Supreme Court denied and let Texas enforce it in July 6th of 2026. This is about a month ago, where essentially the Supreme Court said, we are not proceeding with this. It is denied. And they're not saying deny in the sense that they don't agree or disagree with this. They're not saying it is or is not constitutional. They're just letting Texas enforce it for now. So the actual battle of having your identity be shared with these big providers in order to enforce verification, which again is for children, child privacy and safety, is still being fought. I'm not a lawyer, so reading these court cases are kind of daunting. If you look on these links, you'll actually get to the official reviews and the really lengthy bills, both from Texas and from all these lawsuits going on. I'm not a lawyer, so it's a little difficult for me to understand what's going on. I can only really rely on the summarization and what the kind of news agencies are telling me. There's obviously a broad argument that having Google, Meta, Apple provide age verification is a violation of your First Amendment rights. there already are laws in place that obviously protect minors from accessing explicit content, especially in Texas, that require age verification. Now they're saying everyone will have to be essentially put in a bucket: 13 and under, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 and above, which is just wild. And there's two main people that are suing Texas for this. There is, in both cases, there is the Students Engaged in Advancing Texas, which is a member of a community that teaches children uses mobile apps, and they get involved in policymaking. And then there's the Computer and Communication Industry Association, which essentially is a group of App Store and App Store developers, and they're citing obviously huge cost implications and loss of revenue. And then obviously the people that are trying to teach kids with these apps say that it's undue burdensome, right? Imagine having to sell a children's apps in Texas right now. You have to have someone create an account, verify that they're a minor, get their parents' consent, have the parents be verified that they're an adult, and then maybe you can download the app. That seems like a lot of loopholes to get education, right? So it does seem like an undue burden at the current moment. In plain English, it seems like at this moment, Texas is allowed to enforce the age verification process for purchasing and kind of signing up to these app stores. So Google, and I'm sure Apple, and I'm sure Meta, and all their related app stores and apps will require this age verification going forward. This is like a bigger conversation point because in reality, children being unsafe online has always been an issue, right? Exploiting children in chat rooms, even on Discord and a bunch of other apps, has always been a huge talking point, especially for politicians, right? It's always in the name of protecting children. However, what ends up happening is that everyone gets implicated in this. So your physical security is being violated because we have to trust these app store vendors like Google and Apple and all of them to protect your data, right? Your digital footprint already exists out there. For most people, it's unmanageable, right? To know exactly where you signed into, where you've been, your metadata, your privacy. It's a lot. It's a lot to ask from people. And then on top of that, now you're presenting an ID where that data is being matched to a person in the real world. You lose your anonymity, and then you essentially provide these huge vendors access to connect person with data and make a correlation that wasn't previously possible. And in Texas, that's now a law. So this is going to be a law going forward until these lawsuits get rolled out and completed. Again, SCOTUS or the Supreme Court has said, yeah, we're denying the request to stop this law from being enforced. They're not saying we agree or disagree. They're just saying we're letting it happen. And I'm sure these lawsuits will get escalated. They will be resolved, and I'm sure they will be appealed going forward. The articles below argue both sides. They argue that children should be kept safe and they should not be accessing material they should not be accessing, right? And then Texas is arguing, well, currently we do limit people based on age range. So we don't give driver's license to 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds. So we'd have the ability to regulate these policies as if it were this kind of the same thing. And then these app vendors are saying, well, it's going to cost us money, and you're opening Texas up to huge, massive liability. So there's a lot of good arguments to be made. I think, in my personal opinion, there is a fair point to protecting kids online. I think it's a real good goal. I think the method that we're doing is overly invasive, and it's forcing every adult to identify themselves with either Google, Meta, or Apple, and they end up holding your ID, right? So you have to trust that they won't misplace, misuse, or get hacked, which historically there's very few companies that have earned my unbridled trust. Google, Apple, Meta are not one of them. Apple, so Apple's actually pretty against this. From reading the articles, Meta's like, cool, we'll jump on board. So if you read the articles, there's a bunch of conversations happening between the Apple CEO and Texas specifically, having those conversations saying, yeah, we don't want to abide by this. And obviously there's some ulterior motives causing more friction for people to jump on your platform is always a cause for concern when it comes to revenue. Texas being the first is just wild to me because it's historically been a red state, and now being implicated, now having to be kind of having to address this head on is pretty wild to me. But that's why I'm kind of building my own tech stack as I go. I'm going through the process of de-googling my life. I'm getting away from Gmail and from Drive and a bunch of other Google features, not because of this law, but more because I like the ability to control my state. I also really don't like AI being jammed into paid services that I currently own. Like, I don't want to have to disable everything every time something updates on my Chrome, on my browser, my phone, everywhere, right? It's just annoying. Like, these big companies are obviously doing this for specific reasons, and I'm sure they're not all altruistic. So yeah, I'm building my own tech stack, and it's ironic that I'm actually posting this on YouTube because YouTube is owned by Google. However, this is more of a separate challenge, and ultimately YouTube will probably be my only last thread hanging at the very end. But yeah, it's part of the process. So yeah, if you want to follow the stories more closely, I'll leave the link to all of them down below. If you want to read through the articles, the debates back and forth between the companies, the lawsuits between Texas and these two other bigger groups, you can go ahead and read up on that. I think, in my personal opinion, this is a bigger red flag than people are making it out to be. And I think this sets a bad precedent going forward, where you're going to have to show your ID for every single thing, right? This whole fear-mongering aspect of it, I think, is a little bit over-exaggerated. But I do think there's some validity in saying that certain amendments, certain rights are being violated when you do force the companies in the state you live in to require IDs or verification or extra steps. Yeah, that's pretty much it. This is day 12. No AI today, which is good. There'll probably be AI tomorrow. There's a bunch of crazy news that happened with Anthropic and hacking stuff. Unfortunately, that stuff makes headlines currently, so I'll probably be doing a video on that tomorrow. Go ahead and like and subscribe, and I'm signing out for today. All right, have a good one.